Chosen one. Yes, you. The one who has spent a long time being described by people who never once read past the first page. Before we begin, do something for me. Sit down. If there's a door near you, close it. Not to shut the world out in fear, just to make one room that belongs to us while we talk. Put your phone face down on the table, screen against the wood, where nothing can reach in and flatten you back into a notification. Unclench your jaw. You've been holding it, and you didn't notice, because you've been holding it for years. Now breathe out, all the way out. Not the polite little breath you give a stranger, the long one, the one that empties you completely, and let the next breath come in on its own, without you managing it. Good. That's the chosen one I'm speaking to. Now listen, because tonight something got compared side by side that was never supposed to be compared, and a room somewhere went very quiet and then very cold. For a long time now, a version of you has been walking around out there without you. A short version, a summary. A flattened, easy-to-carry copy that fit in other people's pockets, that they could pull out at parties, in meetings, in kitchens after the plates were cleared, and hand to someone who had never met you and say, "Here, this is them. This is who they are. No need to look any closer." And people took that copy. They believed it. They made decisions about you based on it. They sold it to each other and never once suspected it was a forgery. Because a good forgery does not feel like a forgery. It feels like the truth, only easier. That copy has been doing your living for you in rooms you were never invited into. And here is what happened this week, chosen one. Somebody, somewhere, finally held the copy up next to the original, and the copy did not survive the comparison. I'm not going to tell you yet who held it up, or what surfaced, or why it turned the air in that room to ice. We'll get there, and it will be worth the wait. Right now, I only want you to feel the size of what I just said. They sold a fake version of you to everyone. For years it worked. And now the true one is surfacing, slowly, from underneath. The way the older painting bleeds back through the newer one when the top layer thins. And a fake, once you have seen the real thing standing behind it, is a thing you cannot unsee. Not you, not them. That is what went cold. The realization that the copy they trusted was never the person, and the person was here the whole time, unread. Let me put something down for you before we go one step further, because you have been carrying it a long time, and it does not belong to you. For years, you felt the gap. You knew that the way people talked about you did not match the temperature of the room inside you. You would hear a sentence about yourself. You're the quiet one. You're the difficult one. You're the one who's fine. You're the one who doesn't need anything. And something in your chest would go still and wrong, because you knew it was close enough to pass and far enough to be a lie. And you couldn't argue with it. That's the cruelty of a good forgery. The louder you correct it, the more you look like exactly the difficult, defensive person the copy already described. So you stopped correcting it. You let the summary walk around wearing your name. And you told yourself you were imagining the gap. You were not imagining it, chosen one. There were two of you the whole time. The one you actually are, and the one they were trading. And you have been quietly grieving a version of yourself that other people got to enjoy, the real one, while you were left carrying the counterfeit's reputation. That season is ending. Stay with me, and I'll show you exactly how. If any of this is landing where it's supposed to land, do one small thing for me. Tap the like and subscribe. Not for me. I want to be clear about that. This message only travels when it moves, and somewhere out there right now is another chosen one holding a flattened copy of themselves and wondering why it never quite fit, exactly like you were an hour ago. The like puts this in front of them. That's the whole mission. Pay it forward to the next one who needs it. Now, let me tell you what has actually been happening out in the rooms you were not in. They did not misread you, chosen one. That's the first thing to correct, because misread lets them off. A misreading is an accident. What happened to you was not an accident. You were edited. Somebody took the whole contradictory, inconvenient, luminous fact of you and cut it down to a size that was easier to dismiss, easier to be comfortable around. And then they circulated the edit as if it were the original. Why would anyone do that? Not always out of malice. That's the part that will surprise you. A full person is hard to hold. A full person makes demands on your attention just by existing and can't be filed. So people, most people, without ever deciding to, reach for the summary. Because the summary lets them keep you in a drawer and still feel like they know you. The flattening is a convenience. It costs them nothing, and it costs you your whole life. Here's the thing they never accounted for, though. The parts they cut are the parts that were true. Think about what always got left out of the copy. The copy never included the reason. It said you were withdrawn, and cut the part where you were carrying something no one offered to help with. It said you were intense, and cut the part where you were the only one in the room who actually cared whether the thing was done right. It said you were too much, or not enough, and cut the entire interior weather that made those words meaningless. A copy is not a small version of the truth. A copy is a lie made mostly of true-sounding parts, and the missing parts are always the load-bearing ones. You have been judged by a document with the most important pages removed. And chosen one, let me name the strangest part of it. You started believing the copy too. That's what a forgery does when it circulates long enough. It doesn't just fool the buyers, it reaches back and reaches the original. And one day you catch yourself introducing yourself with their summary, apologizing for traits you don't have, managing a reputation that was never a fair likeness in the first place. You have been performing the counterfeit to make its story hold together, and it has been exhausting because you were doing a bad impression of a bad portrait of yourself. No, you did not become the person they described. No, you did not fail to be who you really are. You were handed a role and told it was a mirror, and you have been reading your lines off a script somebody else abridged. Now, before we go into the mechanism, and there is a mechanism, 12 pieces of it, laid out in the exact order it comes apart, I have to tell you something about right now, because right about here, the room always thins out. Some of you came for the title. You felt a small pull. You clicked, and that's fine. There's no judgment in it. But somewhere around this point, the merely curious start to drift. They can feel the video turning from something entertaining into something specific. And specific is uncomfortable when it lands too close. So they go looking for the next easier thing. Let them go. This was never built to hold everyone. It was cut narrow on purpose. The ones this was made for are doing the opposite of drifting. You got quieter just now. You leaned in a little. Something in your chest went still, the way it does when a stranger describes your own private life back to you with the details intact. If that's you, chosen one, then these next words are yours specifically. Go down to the comments and drop the number 999. Just that. 3 nines. Not for luck, not because it's trending, not because 3 digits change anything about your circumstances. They don't, and I won't pretend otherwise. 999 is an angel number, and what it means is completion, an ending that clears the way for the true thing to begin. Drop it as a signal, plain and quiet, that you're locked in and you intend to hear this all the way to the end. Think of it as a hand raised in a dim room. I'll see it. And more than that, the others who felt exactly what you're feeling will see it too. And they'll know they weren't the only one carrying a counterfeit tonight. 999. Raise your hand. And while you're down there, the like and the subscribe keep this reaching the people it was made for. Now, here is what comes next. Not more comfort. 12 pieces in order, precise and step by step, showing you exactly how a forged version of a person comes apart, how the real one surfaces from underneath, and why the ones who were trading the copy went cold the second they understood what they'd been holding. Number 1. The moment the copy stopped matching. They did not go cold because of anything you said. They went cold because the original walked into the frame and stood next to the forgery. And for one unbearable second, everyone could see both at once. You need to understand what actually happened in that room, because you'll want to take credit for it or take blame for it, and neither one is yours. You did not expose anything. You did not make a case. What happened was quieter and far more final than that. You simply did something, or said something, or were seen doing something ordinary, and it did not fit the copy. It contradicted the summary they had all agreed on, and a contradiction in a room that has settled on a story does not land like new information. It lands like a crack in glass. Imagine this. A gallery, late in the day, nearly empty. On the wall hangs a painting everyone has walked past 1,000 times, confident they know it. A small, dim portrait they've stopped really looking at. Then, one afternoon, the light shifts. The sun comes low through a west window, and for a few minutes it hits the canvas at an angle it never usually catches. And underneath the portrait everyone thought they knew, another face begins to surface. Older, different. The artist had painted over an earlier work, and for years the top layer held. But paint thins with time, and light finds the truth at the right angle. And now anyone standing there can see 2 faces in the same frame, and can never again see only the one they were comfortable with. Nobody added anything. The light just came in sideways, and the original refused to stay buried. That is what happened in that room, chosen one. The light came in at the wrong angle for their story, and the face underneath surfaced, and everyone who had been trading the top layer suddenly saw there was a whole person under the summary they'd been passing around. You might wonder why the reaction was so severe when nothing was actually accused or proven. Because the damage was not in front of them, it was behind them. In that instant, they were not calculating what you would do next. They were recalculating every conversation they had ever had about you, every confident sentence, every knowing look passed across a table. All of it, all at once, revealed as a description of a person who does not exist. And you cannot defend against that because it has already been spent. They didn't just discover they were wrong about one thing. They discovered they'd been wrong out loud to each other for years on a schedule. Here's the line they can't say out loud. We were never actually talking about them. We were talking about a copy we made, and the real one just walked in. That's why nobody could speak. Not shame exactly, something closer to vertigo, the sensation of a floor being exactly where you thought it was, until it wasn't. The cold in that room was not a judgment on you. It was the sound of a forgery being recognized as a forgery by the people who had been spending it. Number 2, why they flattened you in the first place. A full person cannot be filed, so they filed a smaller one and threw the rest away. I want you to release something here, because you have spent years secretly assuming the copy was made out of hatred, and that assumption has poisoned rooms it never needed to touch. Most of the time, you were not flattened because someone despised you. You were flattened because you were inconvenient at full size. And that is worse in one way and much better in another, so stay with me. A whole person, contradictory, deep, capable of surprising the story anyone has of them, is genuinely hard to carry around. It takes attention. It resists the drawer. So people reach almost automatically for the version that fits, the label, the summary, the one adjective that lets them stop looking. They don't experience it as an act of violence. They experience it as getting to know you. But make no mistake about what it costs. The version that fits in their pocket is the version that had to be cut down to fit. Everything that wouldn't fit, which is to say, most of you, got left on the floor. Here is what they never accounted for. The parts that wouldn't fit in the copy are not gone. They were never destroyed. They were only excluded. And an excluded thing is not a dead thing. It's a thing standing just outside the frame, waiting for the frame to fail. Imagine this, a great sprawling map of a real and complicated country, and someone who needs it to fit on a single small card. So they cut. They trim the coastline until it's a smooth line, delete the mountains that made the roads bend, erase the rivers until they have a tidy little rectangle they can slip into a wallet. And for a while, the card works because most people never go there. They just trust the card. But the country did not shrink. The mountains are still standing. And the first person who actually travels the place, card in hand, discovers within an hour that the card describes nowhere. That the real country is enormous, and the card was a convenience someone mistook for the truth. You are the country, chosen one. They have been navigating you with the card. So you might ask, why does it matter now if the flattening already happened? Because a copy needs constant maintenance, and they are about to stop being able to afford it. A summary of a person only holds as long as the person stays off stage. The moment the full version starts appearing, in a room, in a decision, in a single act that the label can't contain, the card and the country stop matching, and everyone holding the card has to choose. Update or keep insisting the country is the size of their wallet. Here's the line they can't say out loud. We didn't shrink them because they were small. We shrank them because they were too big to keep comfortable around. So stop taking the size of the copy as a verdict on your size. The copy was never a measurement of you, chosen one. It was a measurement of how much of you somebody else was willing to hold. You are not the card. You are the country the card was too lazy to draw. Number 3. What they had to cut to make it sell. The version they could market was the version with the truth taken out. There is a specific grief underneath all of this, and I want to name it precisely because a vague grief cannot be set down. The grief is this: the parts of you they removed to make the copy easier were the truest parts you had. Not the flaws, the truest parts. The forgery didn't cut your worst material. It cut your realest material, because your realest material was the part that couldn't be summarized and sold in one sentence. Think about it honestly. What always got left out? The copy left out your reasons, always the reasons. It kept the fact that you pulled back and deleted the weight you were pulling back under. It kept your silences and threw away everything the silences were protecting. A person's depth is exactly the part that resists the sentence, and a copy is made of sentences, so the depth is the first thing that hits the cutting room floor. What survives into the summary is the shallow part, because the shallow part is quotable. Imagine this: a photograph of a person standing at the edge of something vast, a shoreline, a canyon, a crowd at a moment that meant everything. And then someone crops it. They crop it down to just the face, tight, no context, because the tight crop is easier to file and easier to caption. And now the same face that was full of a specific, enormous moment reads as blank, or bored, or cold, because everything that gave the expression its meaning has been cut out of the frame. Nothing about the face changed. The face is identical. But the truth of it lived in what surrounded it, and the crop threw the truth away and kept the pixels. That is what circulates as you, chosen one. The tight crop. The face with the reason cut off. So why did the cropped version travel so much better than the true one? Because the true one asked something of people. To understand the real you, they'd have had to keep the whole frame, hold the context, sit with the reason. And most people won't spend that. The crop asks nothing. It can be forwarded, summarized at a dinner in 8 words. Ease is what made it spread, and ease is exactly what made it false. Here's the line they can't say out loud. The version of them we could actually use was the one with the soul trimmed off. So set the vague grief down and pick up the precise one, because the precise one has an answer. You did not lose your depth. You were only cropped out of the story that got told about you. The full frame still exists. You are standing in it right now. They kept the pixels and cut the meaning. The meaning never left. It was just outside the frame, waiting. Number 4. Who bought the copy and what they thought they knew? Everyone who was sure they knew you knew the summary. Not one of them read the original. This one will rearrange something, so hold still for it. All those people over the years who spoke about you with such confidence, who were certain they had you figured out, not one of them was working from you. They were all working from the copy. They were quoting each other. The confidence you found so wounding, that airtight certainty about your character, was never certainty about you. It was the smoothness of a story that had been passed hand to hand so many times. All the rough, true edges had worn off. And before we go any deeper, chosen one, do one small thing. If this is landing where it was meant to land, drop 999 in the comments, not for me, but as a quiet hand raised in a crowded room, a way of saying, I am here. I am one of the ones this was written for. 999, the number of a cycle finishing. A season closing on time, a thing completed. Leave it below and let the next chosen one see they are not the only one who stayed. Understand what that means. You have been hurt for years by the opinions of people who never actually encountered you. They encountered the summary, agreed with it, and mistook their agreement for knowledge. And a room full of people agreeing about a copy feels, from the inside, exactly like a room full of people who know the truth. That's why it had such weight. Not because it was accurate, because it was unanimous. Unanimity is not accuracy, chosen one. 100 people can be perfectly agreed on a forgery. Imagine this. A single counterfeit bill, well made, dropped into circulation on a cold morning. It moves, it buys coffee, gets folded into a till, gets paid out as change, crosses a dozen hands before noon, and every person who touches it is certain it's real, because it's spent, because the last person took it, so it must be good. Its credibility grows with every exchange, not because anyone verified it, but because everyone assumed the one before them had. The bill gets more trusted the further it travels from the forger, right up until it reaches a teller who holds it to the light. And in that light, all those confident exchanges become exactly what they always were. A lie that a lot of people agreed to pass along. That is the copy of you, chosen one. It got more credible the more it circulated, and none of the circulating had anything to do with whether it was true. So you might wonder why nobody ever went back to the source. Because the copy was sufficient for their purposes. Nobody verifies a bill that keeps spending. The summary let them feel like they knew you without the cost of knowing you. And as long as it kept working socially, its accuracy was never in question. They didn't come to the source because the copy was doing the job the source would have made harder. Here's the line they can't say out loud. None of us ever actually knew them. We just all agreed we did. So stop treating their certainty as evidence. Their certainty was circulation, not truth. A forgery gaining confidence with every hand it passed through. The unanimity that crushed you was never a jury's verdict. It was a counterfeit spending well in a market that never checked. And a bill that spent for years still turns to paper the moment one person holds it to the light. Number 5. The flaw every forgery carries. The copy of you had a tell. It never changed, because a copy can't grow. Here is something the ones who traded your summary never understood about summaries, and it's the crack that finishes them. A copy is frozen. It is fixed at the moment it was made. It cannot grow, cannot deepen, cannot surprise, because it isn't alive. And that stillness, which made it so easy to carry, is also the tell. It's the brushstroke the forger repeats. Given enough time, the frozen thing and the living thing drift so far apart that the gap becomes impossible to explain away. Think about what actually gave the copy away. You kept living. You changed. The years worked on you, and you became someone the old summary no longer fit. But the summary didn't update, because summaries can't. It kept describing a person you stopped being a long time ago. And at some point, the distance between the frozen copy and the living original got so wide that a room did the arithmetic without meaning to, and realized the description they'd been trusting had been describing a ghost. Imagine this: a photograph of a child, kept in a wallet for 30 years, pulled out at every gathering. This is them, the owner says. This is who they are, and holds up a picture of a 5-year-old to describe a grown adult across the room. For a while, if the adult stays away, the photo can stand in. But the moment the two are in the same room, the fraud is total and instant. Not because the photo is fake, it was true once, but because it stopped at an age the person walked out of decades ago. A copy is always a photograph, always describing a version that time has already left behind. That is the tell in the thing they traded. Chosen one. It froze you at a moment, and you refused to stay frozen. So why couldn't they just update the copy as you changed? Because updating a copy means going back to the source, and that is exactly the work the copy existed to avoid. To update it, they'd have had to admit the first version was always going to expire, was never the truth, but a snapshot. And that admission unravels the entire confidence they'd built. So they kept holding up the old photograph, insisting it was current, while the living person grew further and further out of its frame. Here's the line they can't say out loud. We kept describing a version of them that stopped existing years ago and called it knowing them. So stop measuring yourself against a frozen thing. You are not the same as the copy because you were never supposed to be. You're alive and it isn't. The gap between you and their summary is not your inconsistency, chosen one. It's your growth, and their forgery couldn't follow you. The copy stayed the same. That's how everyone finally knew it was a copy. Number 6. The original surfaces. It was never gone, it was underneath, and the top layer is finally thinning. Now we come to the turn, so slow all the way down with me. Everything so far has been about the copy, how it was made, who bought it, why it held. But there is a reason this is surfacing now and not staying buried forever, and the reason is permanent. The original was never destroyed. You can paint over a canvas, but you cannot unpaint what's underneath. You can summarize a person, but the person keeps living right there under the summary. And time is on the side of the truth, because time thins the top layer and never thins the bottom one. The real you did not have to fight its way out. It didn't stage a comeback or make a case. It simply kept existing patiently underneath while the copy did all the visible work. And copies fade because they have no root, and originals don't because they are the root. What you're feeling right now, this strange sense that something true is becoming visible again after years of being spoken over, is not you finally proving yourself. It's the top layer wearing thin enough to see through. Imagine this. A restorer in a museum working on an old darkened painting with a soft cloth and a solvent, lifting decades of yellowed varnish away 1 careful inch at a time. And as the grime comes off, colors nobody alive has ever seen begin to return. A blue that was always there, a face that was always there, a whole scene that the darkening had swallowed. The restorer is not painting anything. The work is entirely removal. The masterpiece was under there the whole time, complete, and all that was ever required was to take away what had been laid over it. Restoration is not creation, it's uncovering. That's what this season is, chosen one. Not you becoming someone new, you becoming visible again. The varnish lifting, the true colors returning, the face under the face coming back into the light where it always belonged. You might wonder why it took so long if the original was always there. Because a top layer takes time to fail, and it fails from the inside. The copy didn't get discredited by an argument. It got discredited by duration, by simply lasting long enough that its seams showed, and the living thing underneath outlasted it. Truth doesn't usually win by fighting the lie. It wins by outlasting it, because the lie has to be maintained, and the truth only has to keep being true. Here's the line they can't say out loud. The real one was under there the entire time. And we spent years admiring the coat of paint we put on top. So stop believing you have to construct the real you out of nothing, or earn your way back to yourself. There's nothing to build. The original is intact under the varnish, exactly as it always was, chosen one. This isn't a becoming, it's an uncovering. They painted over you. They did not erase you. Nobody has ever managed to erase an original by covering it. Number 7. What the real version exposes about them. The copy was never a portrait of you. It was a self-portrait of the ones who made it. This is the piece that turns the whole thing around, so receive it carefully. Every forgery reveals its forger. Every summary tells you more about the one who wrote it than the one it claims to describe. When someone flattens you into a convenient shape, the specific shape they choose, what they cut, what they were threatened by, what they needed you to be small about, is a confession. It's a map of their own fears wearing your name. And when the original surfaces, it doesn't just clear you. It leaves the forgery hanging there in plain view, and everyone can finally read it for what it was, a document about them. Think about what the copy of you emphasized. It probably made small exactly the things that would have made someone insecure to sit next to at full size. It called ambition arrogance, and depth difficulty, and independence coldness, translating every strength into a flaw, which is precisely what a person does when they need you diminished in order to feel level with you. The copy wasn't a description. It was a negotiation with their own discomfort, conducted in the language of your character. Imagine this, a caricature drawn by someone who claims to be capturing a stranger, but every caricature they draw comes out with the same sneer, the same meanness in the eye, no matter who sits for it. And after enough of them, everyone realizes the sneer isn't in the subjects, it's in the hand. The artist has been drawing their own contempt onto every face and signing it with someone else's name. The caricature was never a likeness of the sitter. It was a portrait of the drawer, exposed by its own consistency. That is the copy of you, chosen one. The distortions in it were never yours. They were the forger's, drawn onto your face and passed off as your features. So you might wonder why this exposure lands so hard on them now, when for years the copy protected them. Because as long as you stayed off stage, the copy read as a description, and the forger stayed hidden behind it. But the moment the original surfaces and everyone can compare, the gap becomes visible, and a gap has to be explained. And there's only one honest explanation. Somebody made the distortion. Somebody chose it. The copy stops being a neutral summary and becomes evidence of a hand, and the hand is the last thing the forger wanted anyone to look for. Here's the line they can't say out loud. Everything we said about them was actually a description of what we were afraid of. So stop wearing their distortions as if they were features of yours. The meanness in the copy was never in you, chosen one. It was in the hand that drew it, and now that the original has surfaced, that hand is the only thing anyone can see. The forgery didn't reveal you, it revealed them. It always does, once the real one stands beside it. Number 8. Why they cannot recall it. You can pull a copy back off the street, but you cannot unshow the original once it's been seen. Here is the trap the ones who traded your summary are only now discovering, and it is airtight. A story, once released, cannot be recalled. But the deep problem is worse. Even if they could somehow round up every copy of the flattened you and burn it, it would change nothing now. Because the thing that undoes a forgery is not the destruction of the forgery, It's the sight of the original, and a sight cannot be unseen. Once a room has looked at the real thing next to the copy, there is no press release, no apology, no quiet correction that puts the copy's authority back. The seeing is permanent, and the seeing is the damage. Understand what they're facing. They spent years building the copy's credibility, and it rested on one condition, that the original never appear for comparison. That condition is now broken, permanently, and it cannot be unbroken. They can't make people forget the moment the real you contradicted the summary. They can't unring it. Every attempt to reassert the old story now sounds like exactly what it is. A person insisting on the copy after everyone has already glimpsed the source. Imagine this: a bell rung in a stone hall. For as long as the maker held the rope, they controlled the silence. But the moment they let the clapper swing, the sound was gone from their hands forever. It filled the hall, it reached every ear, it soaked into the walls. And now, however tightly they hold it still, the ringing is already out, already heard, already inside everyone who is in the room. You cannot pull a sound back into a bell. The instant it rang, it stopped being theirs. That is the surfacing of the real you, chosen one. It has been rung, it cannot be unrung, and they know it. So you might wonder why they still keep insisting on the old copy. Because admitting it's over means owning the forgery in front of everyone who once trusted it. So instead, they keep grabbing the rope, as if stillness now could unring the sound already loose in the room. It only lets everyone watch them refuse the truth in real time. Here's the line they can't say out loud. There's no way to make them unsee what they already saw, and we don't know how to live in a room where the real one is visible. So stop bracing for the copy to be reimposed on you. It can't be, chosen one. The original has been seen, and seeing does not reverse. Whatever they do from here, they are working against a thing that has already happened. The copy can be recalled. The sight of the real one cannot. That's the cold they're standing in. Number 9. The ones who came back to look again. People are quietly comparing the copy to the original now, and they cannot make the two line up. Watch what starts happening around you as this surfaces, because you'll misread it if I don't name it first. People who had you filed under the summary begin, one by one, to look at you again, not dramatically. A second glance, a pause before they say your name, a slight recalibration in how they speak to you, as if they're checking a fact they thought was settled. You'll be tempted to think they've simply had a change of heart. What's happening is that the copy in their hand has stopped matching the person in front of them, and a human being cannot hold a copy and an original side by side without the discomfort forcing a second look. Understand what that second look is. It is not affection returning. It is arithmetic. They are quietly comparing the summary they were sold to the person actually standing there. And the two won't reconcile, and that gap makes them careful with you in a way they never used to be. They're not being kind, they're being uncertain, which after years of false certainty is its own kind of justice. Imagine this: someone who has only ever known a person from a single old description given by a third party. This person is difficult, this person is cold, keep your distance. And then they finally meet the actual person, spend an hour with them, and the description doesn't survive the hour. Every minute of real contact peels a little more off the second-hand summary, until they're sitting there thinking, quietly, mid-conversation, whoever told me about you was wrong, or was describing themselves. They don't say it, but the copy they were handed is dissolving in real time, and they will never fully trust the one who handed it to them again. That is what's rippling out around you now, chosen one. Not a change of heart, a change of evidence. So you might wonder why nobody comes out and says it. Because admitting the copy was false means admitting they trusted a forgery and helped it spend, and no one likes to confess they were fooled. So they don't announce it, they just quietly stop repeating it, start hedging, start being careful. The correction happens in silence, in the space between what they used to say about you and what they no longer will. Here's the line they can't say out loud. The one we were warned about turned out to be nothing like the warning, and now we don't trust the ones who warned us. So stop reading their new carefulness as coldness or as your imagination. It's neither, chosen one. It's the copy failing in their hands while the original stands in front of them, and there is no version of that comparison the forgery survives. They came back to look again. That's the tell that the real one has surfaced. Nobody looks twice at a copy they still believe. Number 10. They cannot produce the original. Only you hold it, and that was always the one thing the forgery could not fake. Here is the piece that ends their power over the story completely, so let it land fully. When a forgery is challenged, there is exactly one thing that settles the matter: the original. Produce the original, and the copy is finished. And the ones who traded your summary have just run into the wall that has no door in it. They cannot produce the original because they never had it. They only ever had the copy. The real you was never in their possession to display. It's in yours. It always was. It's the one asset in this entire arrangement that they could not manufacture and cannot counterfeit now under pressure. Understand the position that puts them in. All this time, their power came from being the ones who described you, the authority everyone consulted. But they were only ever the source of the copy. And now that the copy is in question, everyone is looking for the original to settle it. And the original walks and talks and lives, and it isn't theirs. It answers to you. Every time you simply exist as your full self, in a room, in a decision, you are producing the original, and no summary they hold can stand next to it and win. Imagine this, a dispute over a key. Two people claim the same door, and one of them has a drawer full of copies, dozens, worn, handed out over the years, and the other has one key, unremarkable, that they've simply carried the whole time. And there is only one test, and the test is not how many keys you hold or how sure you sound. The test is the lock. The copies rattle, catch, refuse to turn, close, but cut from a memory of the original rather than the original itself. And the one plain key slides in and turns because it was cut from the source. All the copies in the drawer mean nothing the moment the true key meets the lock. That is the whole contest, chosen one. They have the drawer of copies. You have the key that turns. So you might wonder why they built so much of their standing on something they never actually held. Because for years, no one asked for the original. The copy was never challenged, so the difference never mattered, and they forgot there even was one. It's only now, when the truth is demanded, that they discover the terrible thing, that they built an entire authority on a version of you they could never produce. Here's the line they can't say out loud. We were never the ones who actually had them. We only ever had our description of them. So stop waiting for permission from the people holding copies. They can't give it, chosen one, because they were never holding the real thing. The original is yours. It has always been yours. It's the one piece of this that could not be faked, and it lives in you. They have the drawer. You have the key. Only one of them turns the lock. Number 11. You were never the character. Stop performing the summary. You were the author of it the whole time. There is a posture you've been holding for years, and it's time to set it all the way down. You've been living as if you were a character in a story someone else was telling about you, adjusting yourself to fit the summary so it wouldn't be too obviously wrong, reading your own lines off their abridged script, trying to be a believable version of their forgery. You've been auditioning for the role of yourself in a production someone else was directing, from a copy someone else wrote. But you were never the character, chosen one. That is the great inversion under all of this. You are the author. You are the source the copy was made from. A summary of a book is not the boss of the book. It depends on the book. It comes after the book. It exists only because the book existed first. All those years you were bending to fit the description, you had it exactly backwards. The description needed you. You never needed it. You are the original text, and the copy was always the derivative, the thing that could not exist without you to summarize. Imagine this. A novelist who, through some strange turn, comes to believe they are merely a minor character in someone else's book. Small, walk-on, defined by a single line of description. And they spend years trying to live up to that one line, shrinking to fit it. Until one day, they walk into their own study and see the manuscript on the desk, in their own handwriting, and remember. They didn't come from the book. The book came from them. They are not a figure inside the story. They are the hand that wrote every figure in it. And the single line they'd been trying to live up to was one they had written and could rewrite with a stroke. That is you at this desk, chosen one, not the character, the author who forgot they were holding the pen. So why did you believe you were the character for so long? Because you were handed the summary before you were old enough to know it was a summary, and by the time you could tell, it had been repeated so often it felt like the source. That's the trick of a copy that reaches you early. It arrives before your own draft, so you mistake the abridgment for the original. But the felt order is not the true order. You came first. You always came first. Here's the line they can't say out loud. They were never a character in our story. We were footnotes in theirs, and we forgot which was which. So stop performing the summary. Stop being a careful, believable rendering of somebody's flattened description. You don't have to match the copy, chosen one. The copy has to answer to you. Pick the pen back up. It was in your hand the whole time. You were never the character. You were the author, mistaken for one of your own footnotes. Number 12. The real one is set now. It has surfaced. It has been seen. And a thing that has been seen cannot be unseen by them or by you. Something has finished surfacing, and I need you to feel how permanent it is, because permanence is the whole point of this last piece. The original is out. It has been seen. And the defining fact about a thing that has been seen is that it cannot return to being unseen. This is not a phase. The copy's monopoly on your story is over, and it is over the way a developed photograph is over. You cannot put the image back into the film. What has surfaced, and every day from here, the top layer only thins further, and the original only stands clearer. Understand what that means for the ones who traded the copy. They believe its surfacing can be managed, talked down, recovered, waited out until everyone forgets and the summary can resume its work. It cannot. What was covered can be uncovered.